All right, welcome to the next version of the Genetec Ask Me Anything section here, where we're going through all the questions that people have across the internet about Genetec in general. And a lot of questions that I've received are focused around the CloudLink, and I can kind of understand why. So to help demystify the CloudLink, I've got our illustrious New Jersey sales engineer, Steve Pendino, with us. Go ahead and say hi, Steve.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Awesome. So the first question that that we're going to start with, and this is like a multi question, like it's like an Inception type question. It's like a dream and a dream and a dream. It's the first one is, hey, can you give us a quick refresher on the cloud key? So there's question number one. What is this thing even called? So it's the cloud link. So can you give us a quick refresher on the CloudLink and when it's needed versus when it's not? And then there's a bunch of other questions outside of that. So I think we should kind of start there. So what is this thing that they call the CloudLink and when should we be using it?
So first and foremost, let's keep it very basic and high level overview. Think of it as a communications device. So our CloudLink is what we use to normalize communications across Mercury, across ASIS, across any of the other security platforms that we're able to talk to that are open enough for us to be able to talk to with our CloudLink. So let's start there. And like I said, it's a communications device that we use to talk downstream. So Access Manager up here, CloudLink here, security device platform here.
Okay, so then that begs to ask the question, when would you actually use it? Because there are certain circumstances where we recommend a CloudLink. There are certain circumstances where we recommend many CloudLinks. And then there's others where it's like, nah, you don't really need a CloudLink here. So let's start with, actually, probably what we should start with is, what is the CloudLink actually, right? So it's this box. So it's a Windows 10 embedded box,
Correct.
Right? That is running a piece of software called Softwire. What is Softwire?
Softwire is actually that piece of software that does the communications downstream to those security devices.
Right.
And also don't forget that this is cybersecurity hardened Windows 10 embedded. So it's not that we're just putting out a Windows box on your network and, good luck, patch it as you will.
Right.
No,
right.
This is a cybersecurity hardened device.
And when we're upgrading the firmware for the CloudLink, like when we go from version 10 dot whatever to 10 dot whatever or 11 or 12, what we're actually upgrading on that box is the version of Softwire, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, and then Softwire is what is ultimately controlling the downstream devices?
To some extent. I mean, you're doing the programming in Security Center config tool.
Okay.
And you're programming that information to the access manager who is going out and pushing those changes or threat levels. We alluded to it before, but when do you need multiple cloud links, or when should you have multiple cloud links? A threat level in a particular area or building might be a good scenario for that. So we're making the configuration changes to the access manager who synchronizes those changes to our CloudLink and ultimately down to the devices.
All right, so let's start with, now that we sort of understand the what the CloudLink is from a hardware and software perspective, when would we use no CloudLink? So typically in really small applications where high availability, high levels of redundancy aren't necessarily required, we would say, hey, if you're using a StreamVault 100 or StreamVault 300 appliance, Genetec will give you Softwire to run on that box. What are the advantages and the disadvantages of doing it in that way? Like no physical CloudLink, we're just running Softwire on an SV100 or an SV300.
So let's primarily look at it from first a cost-based position.
Sure.
So if you're looking at a small site with us, if you were to have to buy not only a Windows box to install Security Center on, but now you've also got to buy this CloudLink device. And then on top of that, you have to buy the intelligent controller from Mercury, let's say, just so that you can get to 2 doors. That's really, really expensive. So what we've done to help with that, and at the end of the day, this is just software. And that also lets you let you know you can virtualize the CloudLink.
That's a good point.
We'll table that for now. And
put that in a bucket. We'll come back to it.
The SV100 and the SV300 scenario. So the SV100 is a less powerful device, but great for that 2-door, 2-camera application where you've got an intelligent controller from Mercury, let's say, and 2 cameras from ASIS. And now you've got an SV100 that's running Softwire, that same software that's running on our hardened cloud links, to be able to talk to that Mercury board over the network. Okay. So that's one great scenario for an SV100.
Yep.
Same thing with the 300. Scale that up a little bit. You've got 200 megabits of throughput that you can use on the 300. That's both in and out. So if you've got a lot of people watching a lot of cameras, even if it's only 10 cameras and 10 people are watching those cameras, that's a lot of bandwidth. So bear that in mind. But now we're talking in the scenarios of maybe the 8 cameras and 8 doors. That's a good fit for the SV300.
Sure.
And again, same concept. You've got Softwire running, and you can talk downstream to those Mercury-based devices or other security devices.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, ultimately, on these smaller systems where high availability, high redundancy is not necessarily a factor, and we need to be as cost competitive as possible, sticking Softwire on the SV300 or an SV100 is a key strategy there to bring the overall cost of the system down. I know that there are several integrators that I'm working with that actually have told me that Genetec, in those scenarios, contrary to popular misconceptions about Genetec being too expensive for the smaller systems, by shifting the cost of the CloudLink to the SV100 without the need to buy the physical box, we actually become way more competitive, if not less expensive than even the lower cost alternatives. The other thing that I will say, though, that is a negative drawback to not having a physical CloudLink is that the CloudLink itself can act as a master controller of sorts, right? So if we had like an HID V100, we could wire that RS-485 directly into a CloudLink physically. Obviously, without a physical CloudLink, you lose that capability, but maybe instead of getting a V100 panel, you'll get like an ASIS A1601 or something like that, right?
Right.
Okay. So, all right. So I think we've beaten the Softwire SV100, SV300 question into its grave. So the next question is going to be, so now that we understand the CloudLink and sort of what it does, let's move on to a more advanced topic. So let's say we're using a school district as an example, and we've got several schools within the district. Assuming that all the schools are on the same network, we could get away with using a single CloudLink in this environment. We could also put a CloudLink in each individual school for a variety of reasons. So let's sort of talk through that concept. Why could we use just one? And why would we recommend multiple?
Yep, perfect. So as you kind of alluded to there, we're assuming that the network exists between these two schools and that piece is taken care of. So you could put one CloudLink in the high school, assuming that you stay below 256 doors on that particular CloudLink. And if you've got, 15 doors in your elementary school and 25 in your high school, you're well within those limits. Now, if for some reason the network link between those two locations gets severed and you have a threat level that you need to take place in that elementary school, such as somebody pressing a panic button or initiating a snow day of some sort, and that link doesn't exist, and now your CloudLink is at the high school, but the elementary school doesn't have access to that CloudLink, that threat level can't happen without having also a CloudLink at your elementary school. So that's one reason to have multiple cloud links, but it doesn't mean that you have to.
Right. So what you're really saying is, if I've got one cloud link for, let's say, 5 buildings on a campus, so again, assuming that this is a school district, I've got one cloud link maybe in the high school, and I have Mercury panels or access panels at the individual buildings. If the network connection between the elementary school and the high school where the cloud link is severed, and I have a panic scenario in which I need to initiate a threat level, which would kick off a lockdown, because that communication from the Mercury panel cannot get to the cloud link at the high school, then it won't work, right?
Correct.
So it will never kick off the threat level. The lockdown will never occur.
Right. And your card holders, all of that information is still retained on those local intelligent controllers from Mercury, such as an EP15 or LP1501 or an LP1502. Some of the access levels are still there. I shouldn't say some. All the access levels are still there. So it still functions as normal, but it's not going to change that security clearance we have in Genetec to say anybody who's below this threshold can get in. Anybody who's above this threshold can no longer get in.
Right. Okay. So then we would say put in a cloud link at each physical building. So in that scenario, each building now has its own cloud link, so that if the internet connection were to be severed between the elementary school and the high school, it really wouldn't matter because the threat levels would still kick in at the elementary school level, right?
Correct.
So what is it that's happening at that cloud link that would allow the lockdown to occur, even though the network connection to, let's say, the access manager role that's living in a directory, let's say either in a high school or maybe it's in an admin building somewhere? What is happening on that cloud link locally that's allowing that to happen? Because again, in this scenario, the elementary school has lost its internet connection or it's lost its network connection to the directory. It can no longer see any of the other Genetec devices throughout that school district's network. But when I hit that panic button, it still initiates the lockdown. What's going on there?
So you've configured that threat level at the access level, or at the access manager level first. So me as a programmer, I've gone in and done that threat level, and I say, I need this to happen, this to happen, this to happen. Once I synchronize that information to the elementary school's cloud link, it's now going to retain that information.
So what you're really saying is it's replicating the rules that you've set on the access manager role that lives on the directory server somewhere on the network, and it's basically replicated that so that if it loses its connection to the directory, it really doesn't matter because it retains all that information locally.
Right. That's the correct way to think about it.
Okay. So now that we understand sort of the network architecture and how the cloud link can communicate peer-to-peer and how it communicates to the access manager, now moving on to a more advanced topic. So the question is connecting to access panels not at the same physical location. For example, I've got a property with 3 buildings on 3 separate internet connections, but the access manager role is going to be at the main building. So what would I do in that scenario to get everything communicating together?
So you've got 2 options, and the networking piece is kind of yours to choose from. Either you're going to have some sort of firewall device at each one of those remote locations, and a main firewall that you're creating a VPN tunnel back to each one of those locations, or excuse me, back from that location into the main location. So now we've got, a network that's either routed or potentially flat, probably not flat, it's going to be routed. But now you've got your security devices out at the edge, and you've got maybe your cloud link at the main facility. And over that VPN tunnel or secured tunnel, somehow, you're now getting your communications back. And it's just a normal standard scenario for us in that respect.
Yeah, because ultimately at that point, it's networking. Right. So in this instance, it just happens to be a VPN, but it may as well be a LAN for all intents and purposes at that point to us.
Whether you're using firewalls or some sort of software solution that's available today, like a Palo Alto Networks, it's really up to you how you do that. The last scenario, which is probably more common, is, I've got a Verizon modem here, I've got a Comcast modem here, and I've got my main facility here. And both of those, like you said, are on totally different internet connections. You can forward the ports on those individual modems, but it's up to you to make it secure.
Right.
So that's not the most secure thing to do, and it's not what we recommend, but sometimes that's just the reality of being a business.
Sure,
sometimes
absolutely.
You gotta make it work.
Our integration partners run into all sorts of applications, and whether or not we think their best practice is sort of also beyond our scope, right, to some extent. So I would say in that scenario, we would probably recommend strongly that they put a CloudLink at each one of those locations. Now considering we're spanning a VPN or we're doing something funky across the internet, if we drop that internet connection, let's say one of those buildings is connected through a 4G modem, and that 4G modem happens to go offline, or somebody doesn't pay their ISP bill that month, then at least in that facility, the last known configuration from the access manager is living there, and the CloudLink is receiving all of those events and still pushing out the appropriate schedules, the appropriate rules. Are we able to change the card holders, change schedules, change rules and whatnot? No. Are we seeing alarms coming in from those facilities? No. But when that modem does come back online, all that information is going to dump back to the access manager, and we will receive all that information, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And quick preview for you. The CloudLink is also CloudLink for a reason, right? We can connect to our cloud services. And if you have those cloud links out at those remote buildings, you have the ability with our platform to create a secured tunnel to our cloud.
All right, Steve. So now you've opened up the can of worms. This is the question that everybody has and is too afraid to ask. What is access control as a service? What do we call it? Is it cloud-based? Blah, blah, blah. And I think sort of the origination of this question was when the CloudLink was renamed from the Synergis Master Controller, the SMC. We changed it a few years ago to the CloudLink before we released our cloud-based access control service. Now that we have this cloud-based access control service, whenever you or I are on the phone with an end user or a channel partner and we say the word CloudLink, the automatic assumption, especially in 2020, is, oh, we're going to do this in the cloud? And not necessarily. Right. And as we've mentioned throughout this entire thing, LAN, right? Everything's on the local network. Now we're talking about going to the cloud. So what is the cloud in this scenario? What is it that the CloudLink, using our access control as a service, or what we would call Security Center SaaS Edition, hosted SaaS Edition, because you can also run it on premises. Don't get me started. Right. Access control as a service, so Genetec Security Center SaaS Edition, what is the CloudLink actually connecting to in the cloud?
So our cloud services are hosted in Microsoft Azure. So in Microsoft Azure, we have a team of folks that takes care of that Security Center instance. So those cloud links at those remote buildings get to set up a secured tunnel back to our hosted environment in Microsoft Azure. So you, as the operator or as the integrator, are logging into that cloud-based security center to do your configurations, change your card holders, update your access levels, create partitions, whatever it is that you're doing it in our cloud environment hosted in Microsoft Azure.
And that is a subscription service that requires no maintenance on the end user or on the system integrator side, right? So Genetec takes control of the version that's running up in the cloud, as well as the service releases and the cumulative updates and the hot fixes and all that sort of fun stuff. Like the system integrator doesn't have to maintain that system at all, nor does the end user, correct?
So I'm sure there's integrators that are like probably about to punch you in the screen at the moment, because they still have to maintain those cloud links. They still have to maintain those intelligent controllers. We maintain the software, and we deal with the updates to our software as well as the cloud links.
Ah, okay. So
Now we're not going to just push the CloudLink updates on you immediately and blow up your remote buildings. That's not what we do. But we will upgrade Security Center from 5.8 to 5.9 to whatever the next version is going to be. So we take care of the software maintenance. They still have to take care of the physical maintenance.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So, and just to be perfectly clear, the Synergis CloudLink, the architecture of the system is more or less the same, except we're substituting the directory that would normally be on premises on a server or in a virtual environment with a cloud-based system. So the readers still connected to the panel still connected to the CloudLink, and then the CloudLink, instead of talking to the on-prem access manager, is actually talking to the cloud-based access manager.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think that sort of answers the question on cloud. I mean, I would actually say for the question about the 3 remote buildings and the access manager role, for them, access control as a service hosted would probably make more sense, right? Rather than having to maintain an on-prem server plus all the routing and the VPN configurations, wouldn't it be easier to just put a CloudLink in each building and point it up to our hosted service?
Yeah, I mean, that's up to our awesome partners and integrators to do the cost analysis there, right? What's the cost benefit of having us maintain that and not having to mess with the FiOS modem and the Comcast modem and have technicians deployed at those sites to deal with those issues.
Right.
So, there's cost analysis that needs to be done, but absolutely, it's worth considering.
Well, I think that about answers every question that you could ever have on the Synergis CloudLink, although I'm sure we've probably missed one or two, or I'm sure somebody's going to come out of left field with something really advanced. So if you do have any hot button questions that you want to ask about the Synergis CloudLink, now is the time. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what your question is, and we'll be happy to answer that either in the comments section, or maybe it warrants a completely different video. So again, I'm Phil Coppola. I'm the regional sales manager for Genetec in the great state of New Jersey, and that is
Stephen Pendino. I'm the sales engineer for Genetec here in New Jersey.
We greatly appreciate your time. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.